Don't touch that. You can't afford it." The words sliced through the air like a knife. Then smack, the sharp sound of a slap cracked across the elegant space of the Valiant Luxe boutique on Fifth Avenue, New York. The smooth jazz playing in the background continued faintly, but all anyone could hear afterward was ragged breathing and the trembling clink of a champagne glass in a waiter's hand. The woman in the orange dress stood motionless, Maya Bennett, 38 years old, her face calm to the point of being terrifying. She didn't touch her cheek, didn't step back even once. Her eyes locked on the woman who had just struck her. Heather Price, the store manager, red satin dress, soft blonde curls, lipstick to match, and a look of pure arrogance. No one spoke yet. In the heavy silence, everyone could hear their own heartbeat. Heather slowly flipped her hair, her lips curling, as if that slap had been completely justified. "This area is for platinum clients only. You don't belong here." A few gasps rippled through the room. From the shoe display, a middle-aged man muttered, "Oh my God, this is going viral." In the corner, two young women pulled out their phones and began recording. The flagship store of Valiant Luxe gleamed like a temple of fashion, polished marble floors, crystal lights glinting off glass cases, displaying gowns worth tens of thousands of dollars. The scent of Italian leather and French perfume hung thick in the air, an intoxicating kind of luxury. And in the middle of it all stood Maya Bennett. No designer logos, no bodyguards, just a simple orange dress. And yet she was now the center of every gaze. Heather took a step closer, her voice low but hard as steel. I said, "Leave this area now." Maya didn't move. She didn't look around for allies, didn't defend herself. Her gaze wasn't the look of someone humiliated. It was the gaze of someone observing, measuring, remembering. Memories overlapped in her mind, 22 years old, told by a clerk in a cheap store, the discount section's over there, Mum. 28, followed around a boutique in Los Angeles, because she looked suspicious. She had learned silence. But today, silence was no longer enough. "I'm not finished here," she said softly, her voice low, steady and resonant like water falling on stone. Heather let out a short, dry laugh. "Trust me, you're finished." She gestured toward the guards. A waiter jumped, spilling his champagne, the glass shattering against the marble. The tension thickened. Maya slowly slipped her hand into the pocket of her dress. Every eye followed the movement, slow, deliberate, utterly controlled. She pulled out a sleek black phone, touched the screen lightly, and said, "Activate Protocol 8. Her tone was calm, almost cold. Heather laughed. "You've watched too many movies. There's no protocol here. This is the real world." But across the room, Kayla Brooks, a 23-year-old intern who had scanned Maya's account earlier that morning, froze. She remembered the account carried the Platinum Infinity emblem, a tier granted to only a handful of clients worldwide. Kayla stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. "Mom, her account is valid. I checked it myself." "Step back, Kayla." Heather snapped without turning. "You're here to learn not to speak. I can't stay silent while you treat a customer like this," Kayla said, her voice trembling but firm. The air seemed to explode. Several people started filming openly. Heather's face flushed as she whirled around. "One more word, and you're fired on the spot. If staying silent means becoming like you, then I accept being fired," Kayla replied. Maya tilted her head slightly, her eyes glimmering with something both painful and warm. In that instant, she wasn't just a victim. She was the calm center of a coming storm. Two security guards approached, broad-shouldered, dressed in black suits, earpieces gleaming. One spoke, "Ma'am, please come with us." Maya turned her tone barely above a whisper. "What are your names?" What the guard hesitated. "I need your names for the legal report." A brief pause. The second guard glanced at Heather, then back at Maya, the woman standing, tall, unshaken, not angry, only absolutely certain. Heather's voice dropped, her teeth clenched. "You're wasting everyone's time. You don't understand, this is an area where you're not allowed." Maya's head tilted slightly, her gaze piercing. "Not allowed. On the floor, I own." The room seemed to lose all its air. Heather froze. "What did you just say?" "You can check the shareholder registry of Valiant Lux. I'm the majority owner." Whispers erupted. A man murmured, "If that's true, she can shut this place down." Maya's lips curved faintly. "I will." She lifted her phone and pressed a single button. "Confirm order. Withdraw all capital from Valiant Lux operations." The automated voice over the speaker replied, "Confirmed. $5 billion flagged for removal. Execution in process." The whispers turned into a wave. Heather went pale. The guard stepped back. No one dared move. Maya turned and walked toward the exit. The click of her heels on marble sounded like a verdict. With every step she took, the crowd parted silently. At the door she stopped, looked back at Heather, her expression no longer angry, only sorrowful. Luxury isn't in the price tag. It's in how we treat people, especially when we think no one's watching. Then she walked out. The sunlight from the street poured through the glass, catching her orange dress until it seemed to blaze against the heavy air. Behind her, Heather stood frozen. Kayla bowed her head, tears slipping down her cheeks, not from fear, but from witnessing something far greater than her job. A moment that redefined the meaning of dignity. No one knew that within minutes, that single slap and the woman in the orange dress would become the symbol of a media earthquake, unlike anything before. But in that exact moment, inside the stillness of the boutique on Fifth Avenue, only one sound lingered, the echo of a single truth. Luxury isn't what you sell. It's how you treat people when you think no one's watching. 10 minutes after Maya Bennett stepped through the glass doors, the first video hit social media. One slap, one look, one sentence, and the world began to shake. Within an hour, the hashtag CEO in orange appeared on Twitter. 2 hours later, it was trending nationwide. By midnight, the phrase, "5 billion gone," had been tagged to the clip millions of times, spreading across every platform. No one knew exactly who the woman in the orange dress was, but everyone knew she had done the unthinkable, withdrawn $5 billion from a luxury empire with a single call. Inside the Manhattan headquarters of Valiant Lux, the board of directors convened an emergency meeting that lasted through the night. Giant screens flashed red data lines, stock down 14% in 6 hours. Heather Price was immediately suspended, but that didn't calm public outrage. The internet never sleeps, and Maya Bennett had become the center of a global conversation about power dignity, and a silence that had lasted far too long. The next morning, sunlight flooded the hotel suite where Maya stayed. She sat by the window on the 48th floor, looking down at the avenue below. People rushed by, faces she didn't know, newspapers in their hands with bold headlines, "The woman who pulled $5 billion with one sentence. Who is the CEO in the orange dress?" Her phone rang non-stop, news networks, business partners, advisors, even competitors. She stayed silent. Only her assistant's voice came through the speaker. "Maya, Global News. Prime wants a live interview. They said you can say whatever you want." Maya leaned back in her chair, eyes half closed. In her mind, everything replayed like a slow-motion film. the slap Kayla's look, the shattering glass, the final words. She knew if she stayed silent, the world would write its own version of her story. But if she spoke, she could define it herself. She opened her eyes. Schedule the interview, but not to justify anything. I'll speak the truth. The interview took place in Global News Prime's studio, under soft lighting with the Manhattan skyline glowing at sunset. The host, Aaron Whitfield, 45 years old, calm and steady, smiled as the cameras rolled. "Thank you for joining us, Ms. Bennett. The internet is calling you the calmest CEO in crisis history. But everyone wants to know, why did you withdraw $5 billion from your own company?" Maya sat upright, her hands clasped together. She wasn't wearing the orange dress from that day, but a minimalist white suit, no jewelry, no logos. Her voice was gentle, yet carried the weight of forged steel. "Because sometimes money is the only language some people choose to hear. And when power is used to humiliate others, you must respond in the language they understand." Aaron paused, then asked, "So it wasn't about the dress?" Maya smiled faintly. "It was never about the dress. It's about the assumption that I didn't belong in the very space I built. And I'm not the only one who's ever felt that way. Millions of others have too. I'm just one of the few fortunate enough to have the power to change it. And I did." Behind the scenes, the producer signaled for the control room to display a split-screen image on the left the moment Maya was slapped on the right. A photo of Kayla Brooks, the young intern who had spoken up. Aaron asked, "And the employee who stood up for you?" "Kayla Brooks." "She'll have a permanent position in my office," Maya replied, her voice calm, her eyes warm, and a salary worthy of her courage. The studio audience sat in total silence. The host lowered his voice. "Some say you overreacted." Maya lifted her chin, her gaze steady into the camera. "If standing up for human dignity is considered an overreaction, then I hope more people overreact." The sentence hung in the air, then spread beyond the studio. Minutes after the broadcast ended, that single quote was clipped and shared across the internet. "If standing up for dignity is an overreaction, then I hope more people overreact." The caption appeared on millions of posts. That night, Maya left the studio. Outside, hundreds of people gathered, phones raised, chanting her name. Some held signs reading, "Respect is luxury." Others carried flowers. Amid the crowd, she spotted Kayla, her young face glowing with hope. They didn't speak, only nodded to each other, a silent promise. Across the city, in a small rented apartment in Queens, Heather Price sat before her laptop. Her face was pale makeup, no longer hiding the exhaustion in her eyes. Under the latest articles, the comments overflowed with fury. "She's the face of discrimination. Firing her isn't enough. She should be charged. Red dress, red flag." Heather threw her phone onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. Everything was collapsing too fast. One slap, just one slap. How could it lead to this? She turned on the TV. On the screen, Maya Bennett was speaking about respect, about change, about courage. Heather bit her lip until it bled. "She's using me to become a hero," she whispered. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just about Maya. It was about the very system she had obeyed, believed in, and upheld for years. A system that taught her to measure valuable clients by their wallets, not their worth. And tonight, that same system was devouring her whole. 2 days later, everything reached its peak. Morning news broadcasts opened with a single line: "The $5 billion slap-in event shaking the luxury fashion industry. Valiant Luxe shares plummeted 37%. Competitors launched new campaigns with slogans like, "Where everyone belongs," thinly veiled attacks at their rival. Online, countless parody videos, songs and memes appeared half mocking Heather, half celebrating Maya. Meanwhile, Maya's inbox overflowed with offers for collaborations, interviews, and keynote speeches. She responded to only one message addressed to Evelyn Hart, the CEO of a rival luxury brand. "We can change this industry if you're ready," Evelyn replied with just one sentence. "I'm ready. Call me when you want to begin." On the third night, while the world still buzzed with the fever of the story, Maya stood alone by the window of her penthouse. Below her, New York blazed like the veins of the world. In her hand was a cup of hot tea. On the table, her phone lit up with hundreds of unread messages. She didn't open them. She simply whispered. No one thought a slap could start a revolution. But maybe what's truly frightening isn't the slap. It's the silence that came before it. The night wind drifted in lifting strands of her hair. Outside, the giant billboard in Times Square glowed with her image and a single bold line in white. "It's never about the dress." Maya smiled softly. The battle had only just begun. 3 days after the media storm, New York still hadn't cooled down. The story of the $5 billion slap covered every front page, slipped into every talk show, every commercial break. But amid the chaos, one quiet message landed in Maya Bennett's inbox, just 7 words: "We need to talk. Heather." She read it over and over. Not angry, not surprised, just a familiar feeling, like hearing an old melody played again, slower and duller. Heather Price, the woman who had slapped her in front of dozens of witnesses, now wanted to talk. Maya set her phone down and looked through the glass wall at the city, glowing beneath the neon lights. Below, the streets pulsed with life, unaware that on the 48th floor, a woman was preparing for another kind of battle, not fought with humiliation, but with strategy. She picked up the phone and called her assistant. "Find me a quiet cafe in Soho. No reporters, no cameras. Let her choose the seat first." "Yes, ma'am." Maya hung up. Her lips curved slightly, not in a smile, but in a line of quiet vigilance. The Meridian Cafe sat tucked away behind a cobblestone street. No bright signs, just frosted glass with silver letters that read, "Private booths, discreet conversations." Exactly the kind of place bankers and lawyers chose when they needed to discuss things best left off the record. That afternoon, Heather arrived first. No red satin dress, no bold lipstick. She wore a simple navy dress under a grey blazer, her hair pulled back neatly. Her face still carried traces of practiced confidence, but her eyes revealed something new, a mix of guilt and self-defense. She sat with her back to the wall, watching every customer who entered. Her heart skipped each time the door opened. Her fingers clutched her coffee cup so tightly that the porcelain burned against her skin. At exactly 2 o'clock, Maya appeared. She entered like a streak of cold light, a beige trench coat, her hair in a high bun, her stride calm enough to make the entire room slow down. No bodyguards, no assistants, just her and an unreadable gaze. Heather half rose, extending a hand. "Thank you for coming." "You have 5 minutes," Maya said evenly as she sat. No small talk, no smiles, just 2 women facing each other, one who once held power inside a store and one who now held power over an entire empire. Heather took a deep breath. "I know my image is being destroyed. But if you let this continue, you'll lose more than you think." Maya tilted her head slightly, her eyes sharp as a blade. "Is that so? There are things you don't know," Heather said, her voice trembling but bold. I have copies of internal memos about the VIP policy. They encouraged us to do it to categorize customers, to watch them, to decide who was worthy of being in VIP areas. All of it signed by corporate executives. If those files leak, Valiant Lux will burn, but you'll go down with it too. Maya said nothing. The cafe was silent. The faint sound of a spoon stirring coffee somewhere in the back felt like a ticking clock. "Do you think I'm afraid?" Maya asked quietly. "I think you're smart enough to realize the board will use this to push you out," Heather replied. "They can't take your shares, but they can freeze your authority. You'll be shut out of the company you rebuilt." Maya didn't respond. She just stirred her espresso slowly, the silver spoon glinting in her eyes. "And what do you want, Heather A. Deal?" Heather said plainly. "A joint statement. You say the issue's been resolved, the company will review its policies. I keep my dignity, you protect your brand. In return, I'll erase every copy of those memos." Maya looked up. "You came here believing you're in a position to bargain." Heather straightened, trying to recover her composure. "I believe you don't want the world to know you were aware of it all along and stayed silent." 1 second passed. 2. 3. Then Maya smiled a smile that never reached her eyes. "Did you really think I don't already have copies of those files? My legal team secured them 3 months ago. I was only waiting for the right person to admit it on record. And thank you, Heather, today you just did." Heather's face went pale. You recorded this?" Maya stood and placed a black business card on the table. "That's my lawyer's number. If you want to cooperate, call before noon tomorrow. After that we go public, and the story will be told my way, not yours." She turned and walked away. Heather sat frozen, her pulse racing. She looked around, and when she spotted the tiny security camera on the corner ceiling, her stomach dropped. The red light was on. The next morning, the video was everywhere. The angle was grainy, the quality poor, but clear enough to see Heather Price leaning forward in the cafe, saying corporate encouraged us to profile certain customers. Not just her, and then Maya Bennett, calm and composed, sliding the black business card across the table. 90 seconds. No need for more words. The media exploded. Headlines blazed. Valiant Lux manager admits to profiling. Black CEO issues. 24-hour ultimatum. Heather hid inside a small apartment in Queens, her phone buzzing endlessly like a trapped insect. She opened her laptop. Her face was everywhere, in clips, screenshots, memes. Every word she had said was now evidence against her. Across the city, in the top-floor office of Valiant Tower, Maya watched the footage without surprise. She was on a call with Sophie Miller, her communications director. Sophie released the official statement. Yes, the draft's ready. 10 minutes later, the official Valiant Lux account posted a message. No customer should be judged before they are served. Effective immediately, we are implementing a zero-tolerance policy toward all forms of discrimination. Within 30 minutes, celebrities, activists, and even rival brands reshared it, adding their own words of support. This is what leadership looks like. That afternoon, Maya stepped onto the press conference stage in Midtown. Behind her, the Valiant Lux logo glowed in warm amber light. Camera flashes erupted, reporters pressed forward. "This is not just about one store," Maya said, her voice steady and measured. "This is about a culture that allowed people to decide who was worthy based on appearances. Today, we say enough. Change starts here." The room fell silent. Then applause thundered. A reporter called out, "Do you think Heather Price will call before the deadline?" Maya tilted her head, a faint smile at the corner of her lips. She already has. And we're talking? No one knew that conversation had only one subject, how Heather would leave, not if, but when. Outside the headquarters, protesters held signs, high policy change, now. Orange winds. The storm had moved beyond a single brand. It had become a movement, and at its center, Maya Bennett stood unshaken, her eyes fixed on something far greater than reputation's legacy. Morning in New York was quieter than usual. Grey clouds blanketed the glass towers, reflecting a steel-colored sky. Inside the Valiant Lux headquarters on the 31st floor, where the air once held only the soft echo of footsteps and the clinking of crystal glasses, now lay a battlefield without gunfire. An electronic board flickered, with a cold message. Valiant Lux stock down 37%. The long walnut conference table was lined with black leather chairs. Under the amber lights, 12 tense faces stared back at one another. At the center, a man with graying hair slammed his hand on the table, his voice cutting through the room like a hammer. We cannot let her control the narrative any longer. She's destroying this company. It was Charles Wentworth, the chief financial officer, who had served Valiant Lux for 2 decades. His eyes were bloodshot from sleepless nights. Across from him, Linda Cho, the human resources director, shook her head. Destroying or saving what's left of our reputation. Have you seen what's happening out there? Millions are supporting her. Even our competitors are under pressure to change. If we turn our backs on Maya Bennett now, we'll burn ourselves. Another voice rose, calm but firm. It was Thomas Rayner, chairman of the board. Enough. Arguing won't change the facts. We're losing investors. Lang International has already called twice this morning. They want to speak directly with the CEO. The room fell silent. No one dared to look at the screen at the head of the table, where the words, "Incoming conference call, Liang International Holdings Shanghai," had just appeared. Thomas pressed the button. The screen lit up, revealing the face of Liang Guowei, the Chinese billionaire and largest foreign shareholder of Valiant Lux. Behind him stretched a view of an opulent office overlooking the Huangpu River. His voice was steady, soft, but sharp. In China, Valiant Lux represents aspiration, but aspiration cannot exist without respect. If Ms. Bennett is removed from her position, I will withdraw my $2.1 billion investment immediately. And I assure you, I will not be the only one. The screen went dark. The room froze. Charles slumped in his chair, his hand covering half his face. Linda let out a quiet sigh. Thomas spoke, weary but resolute. I believe you all have your answer. 1 floor below Maya Bennett's office glowed in the morning light. She stood before the glass wall, the city sprawling beneath her. Each building reflected a fragment of New York, the city that had taught her both the chill of indifference and the art of rising again. Her phone buzzed. Sophie Miller, the communications director, reported the boards in an emergency session. There are rumors they're voting to remove you as CEO. Maya smiled slightly. I know. And they won't have time to. What are you planning to do? Send the Platinum Protocol file to every major news outlet. Maya, if you do that, it's a time bomb. No, Maya replied softly, her eyes sharp as blades. It's sunlight, and I'm done living in the dark. 1 hour later, every major newsroom, the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, Reuters, received an encrypted file titled The Platinum Protocol. Inside were hundreds of pages of internal documents, manuals instructing staff to classify customers by appearance, wealth, even skin color, signatures from regional managers, records of training sessions, teaching spending behavior profiling, dates, approvals, corporate seals. Each page was a bullet, and Maya had just fired them all into the system she once helped build. The news detonated like an earthquake. Financial broadcasts cut their programming for live coverage of the leak. Online new hashtags exploded across social media: platinum protocol culture, must change ethical luxury. The story was no longer Maya Bennett was slapped. It was now an entire industry unmasked. That evening, while the board still scrambled in the conference room, Maya walked in without knocking, without announcement. She wore a pale orange blazer. Her hair neatly tied her face, composed. Conversation stopped. The only sound was the ticking of the antique clock on the wall. "Good evening," she said evenly. "I have a proposal." Thomas frowned. "You can't just enter this meeting uninvited." "I'm not here to attend," Maya replied. "I'm here to end it." She placed her phone on the table and tapped the screen. A live video appeared: Liang Guowe speaking to reporters in Shanghai, his voice echoing through microphones. "If Ms. Bennett is removed, my Asian partners, and I will withdraw all capital. Respect is the condition of cooperation." Maya looked around the room. "As you can see, I'm not here to plead. I'm here to offer a choice." She pulled a folder from her briefcase and placed it on the table. "I'm requesting appointment as acting chairwoman for 12 months with full authority to restructure company policy and leadership. In return, I will secure investor confidence and maintain global operations." Charles erupted. "You're blackmailing this board." "No," Maya replied calmly. "I'm giving you your last chance to survive." Silence fell. Thomas leaned back, closing his tired eyes for a moment before nodding. "Put it to a vote." But before anyone could move, the door burst open. A familiar voice cut through the tension. "I have evidence that changes everything." All heads turned. Heather Price entered. Gone was the disheveled woman from the leaked video. She stood poised in a charcoal grey suit, her hair pinned back, clutching a thick folder. "She knew about the policy all along," Heather declared. "These are internal emails with her name in the CC field. She was complicit." The room held its breath. Maya didn't move. She simply stepped forward, flipped through Heather's folder, and pointed to a dateline. "Interesting," she said softly. "But every one of these emails predates my acquisition of controlling shares." According to Article 14, Section 3 of the company charter, all decisions prior to that date fall under the responsibility of the former board. The corporate lawyer seated at the end of the table confirmed Ms. Bennett is correct. These documents can't be used against her. Color drained from Heather's face. Maya tilted her head, her voice lowering but still carrying clearly through the room. "And since you've just disclosed confidential material during a closed meeting, I must invoke Clause 7.2 of the Employee Code, serious breach of confidentiality, effective immediately." 2 security officers entered, the same men who had once been present in that luxury store years ago. No one spoke as they escorted Heather out. The echo of her heels faded down the marble corridor. Thomas's voice broke the silence, low but firm. "Proceed to vote." 10 hands rose, 7 in favor, 2 against 1, abstention. "The resolution passes," Thomas announced. "Maya Bennett is appointed acting chairwoman of Valiant Lux." Maya stood still in that moment. No celebration, no sigh of relief. Only a distant gaze through the glass wall toward the rain-darkened sky. She knew this wasn't victory. It was simply the right to start again from the ashes. Outside, thunder rolled across the city. Reflected in the misted glass, the skyline shimmered, and Maya Bennett, the woman once slapped in the most elegant store in America, now stood at the center of power, ready to rewrite the rules of the game. At dawn, the next day, the top floor of Valiant Luck's headquarters no longer carried the distant aura of untouchable power. First light poured through the glass walls, swept across the marble floor, and reflected on the composed face of Maya Bennett. Now not only the chief executive officer, but also the acting chairwoman. Her desk was covered with files, appointment letters, termination notices, and plans marked in bold red corporate culture reform. Phase 1. Maya's voice was low and clear as the internal video meeting streamed live to more than 80 global branches. From today forward, no employee will be judged by background or appearance. We will begin again, not from the brand, but from how we treat people. On screen, thousands of faces appeared, from regional directors to store staff. A few were moved to tears, others bowed their heads in silence. Somewhere scattered clapping began and swelled into a rolling wave. When the meeting ended, Maya exhaled slowly, exhaustion flickering in her eyes. But she refused to stop. For too many years, silence had been treated as a strategy. Now change had to become action. 3 hours later, the internal conference room was full. Sophie Miller, the communications director, entered with a thick dossier. Maya, this is a list of 27 regional managers who directly oversaw the Platinum Protocol. Some received complaints about discriminatory conduct which were ignored. Maya turned each page. Her face showed no expression, but her eyes were cold and precise. Prepare human resources audit files. I want one-on-one meetings with each of them. Are you going to fire them all? Sophie asked softly. No, Maya said. They will have 2 choices, change or leave. Sophie nodded, then handed over another stack. This is our hiring report. I recommend creating a Diversity and Business Ethics Council, chaired by you. Maya skimmed it and smiled. Call it the Dignity Council, she said. I want every decision in this company to pass through them before it is signed. That afternoon, the first audit began. The first to enter was Robert Hayes, the regional manager for Miami, broad-shouldered voice, full of confidence. I disagree with what you are doing, he said bluntly. You are weakening the brand. Limits and VIP spaces are what make wealthy clients feel special. If everyone is treated the same, they will no longer see Valiant Lux as different. Maya did not interrupt. She let him finish, then set her pen lightly on the table. Mr. Hayes, what do you think special means? He frowned. Being served better than others, of course. No, she said, leaning forward, voice low but resonant. Special is when people leave our stores feeling they have value not because of the amount they spent, but because we made them feel respected. If you do not understand that you no longer belong at Valiant Lux. Robert fell silent. She signed the document in front of her and slid it across the table. Decide stay and change or leave. A moment later, he signed the departure form. When the door closed, Maya shut her eyes and drew a long breath. Every signature cut into the very work she had once built, but she knew an empire could not be rebuilt without clearing out what had rotted. News of the quiet purge spread across the branches. The press called it the purge of privilege. Online, thousands of anonymous employees shared stories of being told by superiors to keep their distance from customers deemed unworthy. Public opinion split into one side, praising Maya as the woman bold enough to topple the old system, the other accusing her of going too far. Maya simply continued. Night after night, the office lights burned late. One evening, Kayla Brooks walked into her office. The former intern was now Assistant Chief Operating Officer for North America. You are still here? Kayla asked, concern in her voice. Maya gave a small smile. Yes. There is one more plan I want to finish. Out there they are calling you the calm storm. I think they are right. You know, Kayla. Maya said, her gaze softening. There are times I am tired. When you are a black woman in this world, every step feels like walking on glass. If you tread lightly, it does not crack. If you dare to step hard, it breaks, and you must learn to cross without cutting your feet. Kayla said nothing. In the warm light, she saw not only a leader in Maya, but a beacon, brilliant and solitary. The next day, Maya Bennett's first global address as acting chairwoman was broadcast to more than 50 countries. On stage, she wore a pale orange suit, and the Valiant Lux emblem behind her had been refreshed, the old golden wings replaced by a circle, with the deliberate opening a symbol of an open door. Today, she said, voice clear, we are not only speaking about policy, we are speaking about culture, about the way we choose to see one another. Luxury is not limitation, it is inclusion expressed through action. Change is not optional. Change is responsibility, and it begins right now. Applause thundered like storm surf. Tears traced down a few cheeks. International networks cut commercial breaks to replay the speech. A line crawled across CNN Valiant Lux Reborn, the Dignity Revolution. After the speech, Maya did not remain on stage. She slipped into a small conference room behind the curtains where 3 people waited. Evelyn Hart, the chief executive of rival house Maison Eclat. Marcus Cole, founder of the atelier chain Ardent Atelier. And Rachel Stein, head of the luxury commerce platform LuxNet. Evelyn began, we have watched everything you are doing, and we believe it is time for the entire industry to change. Marcus continued, a shared code. No profiling, no discrimination, transparency in service. And if anyone violates it, public disclosure. Rachel smiled. We want you to lead. Maya regarded the 3 in silence for a few seconds. In her eyes lay the calculation of a strategist and the conviction of someone who had been hurt and would not let anyone else endure it again. I agree, she said slowly, with one condition. What condition? Evelyn asked. We will not only set rules, Maya said. We will create a global oversight council, independent reporting to no single brand. Public reports, transparent penalties. If we change at the root. The 3 leaders exchanged looks, a beat of silence. Then Marcus nodded. Evelyn smiled. Rachel extended her hand. Deal. Maya clasped their hands, a light smile touching her lips. The storm she had begun with a single slap had become a tide sweeping through the world of luxury. That night she sat alone in her office, gazing out at the city washed in light. Wind moved the curtain, carrying the scent of coming rain. On her desk, a gold nameplate reflected the glow, Chairwoman Valiant Lux and founder Global Luxury Ethics Alliance. She whispered, perhaps to herself, perhaps to the world, luxury does not live in material value. It lives in human dignity, and I will defend it at any cost. Outside, the first thunder of the season rolled, and for an instant the city flashed bright. A new era had begun. 3 months later, New York was wrapped in the golden glow of autumn. The trees lining Fifth Avenue blazed with amber leaves, and the Continental Hotel, home to countless billion-dollar deals, shone brighter than ever. Outside, its gates, hundreds of camera lenses, reporters, investors, and representatives from the world's leading luxury brands crowded together. A sea of people held up banners that read, "Dignity is the new luxury." Inside the grand hall, an orchestra played Clair de Lune, soft as mist. Under crystal chandeliers, tailored suits and shimmering gowns glided through a haze of laughter and nerves. Everyone knew today history would be rewritten for the global luxury industry. Behind the stage, Maya Bennett stood before a mirror, dressed in a pristine white suit with a silver belt. She wore no jewelry, only a small pin engraved with the word dignity. Her assistant adjusted the microphone on her lapel, voice trembling slightly. "Miss Bennett, the world is watching." Maya nodded. "Good. That's why we're doing this." She took a deep breath, staring into the mirror. The reflection staring back was calm, but her eyes carried the storms she had endured. That slap years ago was now only a memory, yet it had swept away an entire broken culture and cleared a path for something new. On stage, the host's voice rang out, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the launch of the Global Luxury Ethics Alliance, uniting over 200 brands from 37 countries. And the visionary behind this initiative, chairwoman of Valiant Lux, Miss Maya Bennett." Applause erupted, like thunder camera flashes, lighting up the hall. Maya stepped into the light, her expression composed each step, echoing against the marble floor. When she began to speak, her voice carried effortlessly through the air without needing the microphone. Many people have asked me what inspired this alliance. The answer is simple because I have seen the worst and I know we can be better. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the crowd of attentive faces. Luxury was never meant to be measured by price. It must be measured by principle. Today we sign a commitment, one that declares respect will become the new standard, that every customer, no matter who they are, deserves to be treated as the most important person in the room. In the front row sat the industry's most powerful names: Evelyn Hart, Chief Executive of Maison L'Éclat, Marcus Cole, founder of Ardent Atelier, and Rachel Stein, head of LuxNet. They nodded, eyes bright with conviction. Maya continued, "This alliance is not a public relations campaign. It is a covenant. From this day forward, every member brand will be subject to independent oversight, transparent reports, no cover-ups, no compromises. There will be no more secret doors or VIP rooms built on prejudice." The hall erupted in applause. Some stood, others wiped away tears. The cameras zoomed in on Maya's face, her eyes burning with quiet fire. "Today," she said, "we are not just signing names. We are laying the foundation of a new era, one where human dignity becomes the truest form of luxury." As she stepped back to make room for the signatories, the air thickened with emotion. Each pen stroke sounded like a bell. Cameras flashed wildly as the giant screen behind the stage revealed the emblem of the Global Luxury Ethics Alliance, a golden circle with an open edge, symbolizing a door that never closes. One by one, the leaders signed. Evelyn Hart smiled at Maya and whispered, "You've made an entire industry bow and relearn what respect means." Marcus Cole added softly, "Today you didn't just save Valiant Lux, you saved us all." When the final pen left the paper, the orchestra swelled. The audience rose to their feet. The moment was broadcast live to over 60 countries. On Twitter, the hashtags Luxury for All Ethical Alliance and Maya Bennett climbed to the top of global trends within minutes. After the ceremony, Maya slipped quietly from the crowded hall into the golden corridor beyond. No more flashes, no reporters, only the warm light of late afternoon spilling through tall glass panels. She stopped, closed her eyes for a moment, and listened to her heartbeat slow. A gentle voice spoke behind her. "You're going to disappear into the crowd again, aren't you?" Maya turned. It was Kayla Brooks now, global store director. The same sincerity still shone in her face, but her eyes were steadier now. "How's the Fifth Avenue store?" Maya asked. "You should see it for yourself. It's changed." 20 minutes later, a sleek black SUV stopped in front of the Valiant Luxe flagship store, the place where it had all begun. The velvet ropes were gone, the exclusive VIP section no longer existed. The glass doors stood wide open, beneath a new sign that read, "Every customer is platinum." Maya walked in. The familiar scent of Italian leather still lingered, now mingled with a soft hint of jasmine. There were no judgmental stares, only warm smiles from the staff. Kayla led her to the display wall and pointed to a small brass plaque mounted on the mirror, the very mirror that had once reflected that infamous slap. On it were engraved the words, "Here we learned the cost of forgetting dignity. And we will not forget again." Maya brushed her fingertips across the cool metal. She looked around, customers trying on shoes, chatting, laughing, employees of every color and accent moving with ease. No division, only respect. "Feels different, doesn't it?" Kayla said quietly. "No, Kayla." Maya replied, her voice soft, her eyes deep. "Not different, right? Finally, it's right." They stepped outside together. The sunset cast its glow on the glass facade, reflecting their figures side by side. Two women, two generations standing in the light they had created. A reporter spotted Maya, raised a camera, and called out, "Ms. Bennett, do you have any words for this historic day?" She turned toward the lens, her voice gentle yet resonant, each word carved from conviction. "Luxury is not a club. It's an invitation. And today that door is open." The camera flashed. A breeze swept down the avenue, carrying a swirl of golden leaves glittering under the streetlights. She walked away, the rhythm of her heels blending into the city's music. Within minutes, the clip spread across social media. But no one mentioned the slap anymore, or the $5 billion. They spoke only of the image of a woman in a white suit walking out of the light, leaving behind a message, both simple and immortal. Dignity is the real luxury. And from a single moment of humiliation, Maya Bennett had rewritten the meaning of an entire industry and of the word luxury itself. 12 months after the historic signing, New York had changed seasons. The early winter sky gleamed silver, its reflection on the Hudson River shimmering like cold steel. Inside the new headquarters of the Global Luxury Ethics Alliance, everything operated like a finely tuned instrument. No noise, no glitter, only the steady rhythm of people working for something greater than profit. The building stood on the corner of Madison Avenue, without a sign, without a logo, only a single line engraved deep into the stone wall, "Dignity first." It was a declaration, a reminder, a vow. In her office on the 20th floor, Maya Bennett sat by the window, gazing out at the city. 1 year brief in a lifetime, but long enough to transform an industry that once treated privilege as its soul. On her desk lay the Alliance's first annual report, Year 1 Impact Review, the Dignity Effect. The numbers made her smile. Over 140 brands had joined, average revenues rose by 18%, customer satisfaction had doubled, and most importantly, more than 70% of employees said they were proud to work in the luxury sector. "They've begun to understand," she said softly, "that ethics don't reduce profit. They elevate value." A gentle knock sounded at the door. Kayla Brooks entered now, the executive vice president of Valiant Luxe, her face radiant, but her eyes still carrying the same sincerity as before. "The media report is ready," she said. "You'll like this one." Maya set her teacup down and smiled. Tell me, Kayla, your speech from last year has just reached 1 billion global views. The hashtag Dignity is Luxury has been used over 10 million times this month. And there's more. Some universities have introduced a course called Ethics in Luxury Business, using your speech as teaching material. Maya was silent for a moment, her gaze distant. 1 billion views. We started from a slap. No one ever thought it would go this far. Kayla sat down, her voice softer. You turned pain into legacy. No one else could have done that. No, Kayla, Maya said gently. I just turned a wound into a mirror. The world chose to look into it. At that same moment, a few blocks away, another building glowed with light. Inside, Heather Price sat in a small office at the non-profit Reclaim Dignity Foundation, where she worked as program director for retraining women who had faced discrimination in the service industry. She wore a simple blouse, her hair tied low. Her face no longer carried heavy makeup, only the quiet fatigue of someone who had lived and learned. On her desk lay an article titled, From the Red Slap to the Green Mission, The Redemption of Heather Price. A staff member knocked and handed her an invitation. You've been invited to the Dignity Awards Gala. They want to honor our project in the social transformation category. Heather looked at the paper and smiled faintly. How ironic. I once didn't believe dignity could feed anyone. Now I live by it. She folded the letter and turned to the window where snow had just begun to fall. The memory of that slap still lingered, but it was no longer a wound. It was the beginning of redemption. That evening at the Liberty Ballroom, the atmosphere buzzed just as it had on the signing day. It was the 1-year anniversary celebration of the Global Luxury Ethics Alliance broadcast, live across 42 countries. Maya walked onto the stage to thunderous applause. She wore a bronze silk gown, simple but radiant beneath the lights. Behind her, the LED screen displayed a single line, 1 year later, dignity changed everything. She began with a sentence that hushed the entire hall. 1 year ago, we signed a promise that luxury could never be separated from humanity. Today I want to say this. We haven't just changed an industry, we've changed the way people see one another. Applause swept through the room. Her voice softened, warm and steady. Thousands of customers once turned away are now welcomed. Hundreds of employees who once feared speaking up are now leaders. And everywhere from New York to Tokyo, from Paris to Johannesburg, doors have opened not just for customers, but for compassion. Her eyes shone as she mentioned Kayla. And I've learned that change doesn't begin with power. It begins with one person brave enough to say no. All eyes turned to the front row where Kayla sat. She rose, bowed her head, tears glimmering. The camera zoomed in, capturing the moment the young woman who once trembled in that store now stood as a symbol of courage. Maya ended her speech in a voice calm yet resolute. True luxury doesn't live in the products we sell, but in how we make others feel valued. If we can hold on to that, then we don't need any stage. Every action we take becomes a declaration. When the ceremony ended, laughter and conversation filled the ballroom. Maya slipped quietly away, walking through the jasmine-scented corridor behind the stage. There she met Heather Price. The two women stood facing each other for a long moment. No hatred, only fatigue and understanding. Heather spoke first. I watched your speech. You kept your word. Maya nodded gently. And I heard you're helping a lot of people. I'm trying, Heather said softly. I can't erase what I did, but at least I can rebuild the part I broke. Sometimes, Maya replied, repairing is the highest form of apology. And you've done that. They fell silent. A beautiful heavy stillness hung in the air, as if the world itself exhaled. Heather extended her hand. "Thank you for giving me a chance to change." Maya clasped it lightly. "I didn't give you the chance, Heather. You chose it." That night, Maya stood alone on the balcony, gazing out at the city. Snow drifted down as the glow from distant towers turned the sky into a curtain of silver dust. Across the skyline, digital billboards lit up with her image, and one message: "Dignity is the future." She smiled. Her phone buzzed a message from Kayla. "Boss, the Fifth Avenue store broke its sales record today. But what makes me happiest is that every staff member said customers smiled more. I think that's the real profit." Maya read it, smiled softly and replied, "You're right, Kayla. When hearts are in bloom, no chart is needed." She set her phone down, rested her hands on the balcony railing, and looked toward the sunrise beginning to break over the river. 1 year from a slap to a legacy. 1 woman from victim to symbol. And 1 world from prejudice to awakening. The first light of day touched her face, warm, clear, and proud. The name Maya Bennett was no longer tied to scandal, but to an eternal truth. Luxury isn't about what you own, but about how you hold your dignity, even when the world tries to take it away. 2 years after the founding of the Global Luxury Ethics Alliance, the Paris sky was clear as crystal. Outside, the Grand Palais flags of more than 30 nations rippled in the early wind. Thousands of people gathered in the square for the Global Conference on Business Culture and Human Dignity, an event the press had dubbed the United Nations of Luxury. On the enormous banner draped across the palace gates, 1 line stood out in bold letters, "Hosted by Maya Bennett." Inside, Maya stood backstage, dressed in an ivory suit with a pale orange silk scarf, the color that had accompanied her through her journey. Her hair was pinned neatly, and the lights cast a soft glow across her calm face, though emotion shimmered beneath the surface. She flipped through a few notes in her notebook, her finger pausing on 1 handwritten line. "Luxury is an invitation, not a barrier." The door opened, and Kayla Brooks entered. She was no longer an assistant, but the chief executive of the Global Luxury Ethics Alliance, having just flown in from Tokyo. "They're waiting for you out there, Maya. The world is watching again." Maya smiled gently, her voice low and warm. "No, Kayla. The world isn't waiting for me anymore. It's waiting for itself to see if it's truly changed." She took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The hall was awash with light. Over 1,000 people sat in hushed silence, representing dozens of brands, NGOs, scholars, and young students. When Maya appeared, the entire audience rose to their feet. Applause thundered beneath the glass dome of the Grand Palais. She stopped at center stage, smiled, and began. 2 years ago, I said that change doesn't begin with power. It begins with 1 person brave enough to say no. Today, I stand here to tell you, courage is no longer rare. Her eyes turned toward the front row, where former rivals now sat as allies. From New York to Milan, from Nairobi to Seoul, luxury stores have opened their doors to everyone. And the miracle is, when we open the door for others, we also open the door for ourselves. She paused, allowing the audience to breathe, then continued. But change is not a destination. It is a journey. And that journey continues because there are still too many places where people are judged by their wallets, their skin, or their voices. A ripple of applause spread through the room. Maya glanced toward the front row, where a young, dark-skinned woman in a simple uniform sat. Her name was Amira Khaled, a store employee from Egypt, who had gone viral after standing up for a customer who'd been insulted. Maya smiled and nodded softly toward her, passing on the same flame she once carried. When the speech ended, Maya left the stage amid chairs, slipping past the bright flashes of cameras into the garden behind the palace, where afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees. Kayla's voice called behind her. "Maya, someone would like to meet you." Maya turned to see a tall man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes approaching. "I'm Edward Lang, son of Mr. Liang Guowei. My father sends his regards. He said if it weren't for you, our family's investment would never have become a legacy. Your father is the one who helped me stand firm in the storm." "I owe him my faith," Maya replied. Edward smiled. He told me, "One day, tell her this true luxury is when people no longer need to prove they deserve it." Maya bowed her head slightly, her eyes glimmering. "Thank you. That may be the most beautiful definition I've ever heard." That evening, Maya attended the gala on the rooftop of Le Méridien. The Paris skyline shimmered with light. She stood by the balcony, gazing at the Eiffel Tower, glowing in the distance like a lighthouse. Below, thousands celebrated. She spotted familiar faces: Evelyn Hart, Marcus Cole, Rachel Stein, the allies who had once signed the pledge beside her. They raised glasses, laughing, already discussing future projects. Kayla approached, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Do you remember," Maya said softly, "when I told you every step a woman takes in this world feels like walking on glass?" "How do you see it now?" Kayla lifted her glass. Now the glass has become a mirror, and everyone can see themselves in it. They clinked glasses. Maya smiled, looking out across the horizon. "Someday your generation will do greater things than I ever could, not just in luxury, but in every field. Because dignity isn't the privilege of the wealthy. It's the foundation of being human." Kayla said nothing, but her eyes glowed with pride. The next morning, Maya woke early. Paris lay under a soft veil of mist, the cobblestone streets still damp from the night's rain. She put on her coat and walked along the Seine, stopping before a small boutique with a simple sign, "Boutique d'Or member of the Global Ethics Alliance." The door opened, and a teenage girl in a store uniform greeted her brightly. "Bonjour, Madame." Maya stepped inside, pretending to be just another customer. No one recognized her. The girl handed her a complimentary espresso, part of the Welcome with Warmth program the Alliance had introduced. Maya looked around. The walls were lined with portraits of employees from around the world, each accompanied by a short note about their dreams. In one corner, a small plaque read, "Respect has no price because it is priceless." Maya touched the glass and smiled. This was what she had dreamed of, not an empire, but a way of thinking planted firmly in the world. The young clerk turned and asked, "Would you like to buy something?" Madame Maya shook her head gently. "No, my dear. I just came to see, and everything already looks perfect." She left the shop and stepped into the sunlight. As she passed the window, she caught her reflection. Not the CEO in the orange dress, not the $5 billion icon, but a woman at peace, her eyes carrying quiet light. That afternoon, she boarded a plane back to New York. In first class, she gazed out the window as the sun set over the Atlantic. Beside her was an old leather notebook. On its final page, she wrote one last line. "It took me years to understand that true strength is not in making others fear you, but in making them trust you. And perhaps that is the truest form of luxury." She closed the notebook and leaned back, the hum of the engines blending with the steady rhythm of her heart. She knew her journey wasn't over, because dignity is not a story to be told, it is a flame meant to be passed on. Beneath her, the clouds stretched endlessly, and in the sky above the sunset burned orange, the color of memory of power, and of the woman who turned a slap into a global legacy. 3 years later, Valiant Luxe had become a global symbol of ethical luxury. Every store displayed a sign reading, "Every customer is platinum," and every new employee was required to complete dignity. First, a training program written around Maya Bennett's philosophy. But Maya no longer appeared often in public. After 5 years as chairwoman of the Alliance, she had stepped back into an advisory role, a quiet strategist behind the scenes. Still, her name echoed at every conference, spoken as the woman who had laid the foundation for the era of respect. One spring morning, Maya visited the Fifth Avenue store, the place where it had all begun. The glass doors reflected her image hair touched with silver, a calm smile on her lips. Inside, Kayla Brooks was speaking to a group of young employees. She wore a turquoise suit, her stance confident, her voice full of energy. "Remember, everyone who walks through this door is a story. Our job isn't just to sell, but to make sure they leave feeling seen and respected." The team applauded. Maya stood quietly for a moment, then tapped on the glass. Kayla turned, her eyes lighting up. "Maya, I didn't think you'd come today. I just wanted to see how this place lives without me." Maya said with a soft smile. "It's breathing and stronger than ever," Kayla replied, pride shining in her eyes. They walked together along the display aisles. At the far wall where once hung the mirror that had reflected that infamous slap, now stood a framed photograph of Maya beneath it. The words she turned silence into change. Kayla spoke softly. "I've been thinking a lot about the future. The Alliance needs new leadership, and they want me to take the chair." Maya stopped looking at the woman who had once been the shy intern. "Are you ready, Kayla?" I'm afraid she admitted. "But I think if you once had the courage to walk through silence, I can learn to walk through the light." Maya nodded, her eyes warm with pride. "You're not inheriting me, Kayla. You're inheriting the belief that dignity never goes out of style." They embraced. Outside, spring sunlight poured gold across the street. People hurried past, unaware that in the quiet of that boutique, a flame had just been passed on, silent, steady, and destined to keep burning through generations yet to come. Because in the end, true legacy is not power or fame, but the ability to make others believe that the world can be better if only we choose to treat each other with kindness. Sunset fell over Manhattan, the last light of day, glinting off the glass walls of the Valiant Luxe Tower, turning it into a soft shade of orange, the color of memory of beginnings and of endings. In the penthouse office, Maya Bennett stood alone. Below, the city pulsed with life, yet within her there was perfect stillness. On the desk lay a signed letter of resignation, its final line written in blue ink. "The world no longer needs my voice. It has found its own." She folded the paper, placed it beside a framed photo of herself and Kayla, then stepped out onto the balcony. The breeze carried traces of new leather and jasmine, the familiar scent of the store where it had all begun. On the floor below, the LED screen displayed the timeless message, "Dignity is the real luxury." Maya smiled. No tears, no sorrow, only the quiet peace of someone who knew her purpose was complete. She whispered softly, as if speaking to herself. "Every door I opened was meant for others to walk through." The sunset wrapped around her in a warm orange glow, a light that would never fade. From the perspective of a leadership ethics expert, The journey of Maya Bennett is not merely a story about power and transformation, but a testament that dignity can become the guiding torch for a world that once forgot the meaning of respect. When people choose to stand up for what is right, they do more than renew a brand, they renew humanity itself. If you believe that respect is the foundation of all success, please like and subscribe to help spread that value, and leave a comment with the words, "Hold your dignity."